Hi everybody. Welcome to the Tech Talks web series by Valuebound. This is our first edition of the talks, and today we have Shashidhar Sopin, who will be taking us through Drupal and AI for personalization. Shashidhar Sopin is a senior architect, and he has 15 plus years of experience in IT industry. He works for Wipro, and he is based out of Bangalore. He also has expertise in virtualization, cloud computing, performance, and OpenStack. He generally writes for open source and other online magazines. Shashida, welcome to the episode.
Yeah, hi Gokul, thanks. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Shashidhar Sopin, as Gokul gave a brief introduction about myself. So I am into IT industry from last 18 years, close to 15 plus years in enterprise, working for enterprise customers. As he mentioned, predominantly on storage, cloud, OpenStack, uh, artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning as well. So I'll go through the slides in between. If you have any question, you can stop me over, or I can take up the questions at the end as well. So don't feel hesitate to stop me in between if you have any doubt. It's okay, right? So I'll start with the agenda. I'll be covering today how artificial intelligence evolved over a period of years, because everybody talks about artificial intelligence, what actually it is. And in many of the news channels, you might have seen, or in newspaper, you might have seen news telling that AI is only at POC stage. It is not at the implementation level. That is not true. And AI is no more mystery, because it is already into a lot of applications, day-to-day activities, from Google Home, from Amazon Alexa to Apple Siri, you name it, it has already present. So then I'll briefly cover what is AI, because there are a lot of ambiguities in defining it. I'll cover that. Once we broadly cover what is AI, you should know what is machine learning, deep learning as well, because these are subsets of artificial intelligence. I'll give just a brief insights into neural networks, because that will help you how artificial neural networks evolved, and how you can leverage them for building your applications, whether it is healthcare domain or website management, or it can be anything. Right. Then I'll cover content management and AI, Drupal and AI, and I'll briefly cover some of the industry use cases that have been already implemented, especially not only in content management, in all the areas. Then I'll jump on to content management and give some use cases and conclusions. And finally, I'll take up questions if we have any. I hope this agenda is fine with everyone. I'll move ahead. So let me start with a little bit humor. I think all of you know about Dilbert, right? So one of the robot is sitting between one manager and employee, and they think about how to work on this and all, right? Generally, we do a lot of this chit chatting during our work hours as well. So then robot says, if you don't work, I'll hit both of you with my mechanical arms. Okay. So the reason I'm putting it here, because until 2013-14, AI was just restricted to academic research. But from 2014-15 onwards, it has been evolved into a lot of real life applications. It has found a lot of applications in healthcare domain, banking, financial, you name it, we have it even in cloud, managing your data centers. So everywhere they're using machine learning or artificial intelligence nowadays. So until 2012, as I said, it was just a academic research oriented, but now you can see we have presence everywhere. So brief history of AI. I'm on slide 4. I hope if you are not able to see slides, please let me know also or interrupt me. So it started from late 16th century by Pascal. Okay. So he started with mechanical calculating and tabulating machine. He's a French mathematician. But until 200 years, there is no development happened until Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage. Both are pioneers in because you can imagine 18th century they did not have access to any of the technologies. So how they think that this will be the kind of technology going ahead? They came up with a big programmable machine. It was occupying a big hall, but even then, the kind of output it was generating was very huge for that time. Then again, whenever we see a gap between some invention happening and nothing happening, right? That is called AI winter, because there is no development or any kind of applications being developed during that phase. So that used to happen until 1960s and 70s. But once 2002 or 2009 kicked in, so the AI winter period used to narrow down, and now it has become almost obsolete. So then in 1950, Alan Turing, he is also regarded as one of the pioneers in machine intelligence. He defined what is AI, and he started investigating more on that. So in 1955, AI was officially coined during one of the conferences. Then you might be knowing, right, 1965 onwards, ELIZA, a natural language program, evolved. Then again, 1980s, they started with a lot of emulating machines, started calling them as human experts. And one more breakthrough happened in 1997 between IBM's Deep Blue and chess champion Garry Kasparov. So this machine has beaten him. He was a world champion during that time, world grandmaster. So in 1997, whatever the Deep Blue machine has been developed right by IBM, it was rule based. It was not taking or learning on its own, but even defining rules for a 2 power 64 combinations. You know, right? The chessboard has 8 by 8 squares, and number of combinations will be 2 power 64. It's not so easy, but they made a breakthrough. Then again, 5 6 years, nothing happened. But 2002, iRobot launched Roomba, an autonomous vacuum cleaner that avoids obstacles. They have built some sensors, and it takes decisions based on whether I have to move ahead, whether I have to go below a sofa, or whether I have to stop here. If any dog or cat or human leg appears suddenly, whether I have to come back. So these kind of intelligence has been built. It became popular for a certain period, but again, people started finding flaws in the use cases. But another major breakthrough happened in 2009, and Google built a self-driving car to handle urban conditions. They test drove within Bay Area in the US, and it was successful. And again, IBM came up with Jeopardy game in 2011. So where two Jeopardy champions, you know what is Jeopardy game, right? So based on the answers, you have to generate a question, and there will be points or dollars awarded for each of the question that you generate. So that was the thing. And 2011 to 14, lot of development happened in AI. So be it Apple, Siri, Google Home, or Cortana, or Alexa. So this is the period where a lot of development started happening. So I did not cover some of the things like Jeffrey Hinton and Anne LeCun. So they are regarded as fathers of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning in between during 1980s and 90s. So they developed hand recognition software as well as autoencoders. So that was also one of the major breakthroughs. And in 2014, one of the Stanford graduate, Ian Goodfellow, he wrote algorithms for generative adversarial networks, which is very latest and advanced. And again in 2016-17, we are comparable to human intelligence. We are not still there, but we are comparable. Especially Google DeepMind has beating AlphaGo champion. It is not so easy because AlphaGo is even more complex game as compared to chess game. But 2018 onwards, lot of universities started adopting AIML DL courses as their graduation courses and all. So now it is everywhere. Any questions here? Okay, I'll move ahead. So as I mentioned, artificial intelligence is no more mystery. Why? Because you might have seen a lot of robots in action. So especially the center one is called Anki robot. Even my daughter started using it. She fell. She's in the 6th grade. She fell for the kind of intelligence it shows. So once you record your face, it recognizes whenever you come and show your face to it. It will say your name, hi Shashi, or whatever message you give, and it plays around with cubes and arranges them, dismantles them, and all. So can you imagine how much penetration AI has made over these number of years? As I mentioned, Apple Siri, Google Home, and Alexa, they are also entering into every home. So everyday task, for example, Alexa, what is the time today? What is the weather today? What is the cricket score? So with Alexa as the keyword, you can ask so many tasks, and you can even integrate your home into smart home kind of thing with lot of IoT kind of devices, Internet of Things devices, which will communicate with your Alexa or Google Home, say monitoring your temperature or light sensor inside your house. If there is no movement, switch off the light, or taking control of your refrigerator, microwave, oven. So everything is finding application nowadays. So I'll briefly define what is artificial intelligence. So one can say that it is intelligence that drives value for business, because without this, right, what were the tasks you are doing manually or mechanically, with AI that can be now automated, and there is some intelligence involved there because it will not blindly do it, right? It is not like a repeatable task. So there is some intelligence involved. You have to take some decisions based on some history or based on some surroundings or environment and all. So that is the crucial part of AI. Then the second definition is artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer program or a machine to think and learn. So earlier we used to code or program only based on certain set of rules or guidelines, but now machines started thinking, right? And they will learn once something has been taught to them. How not to repeat the same mistake next. So this was not possible earlier. And finally, it is also a field of study which tries to make computers smart. So earlier computers were regarded as dumb devices, but they are not dumb devices as of now because they are becoming smarter and smarter. Okay, any questions here? Okay, so let me move on to slide number 8. So artificial intelligence, as I said, is a broad classification, and this involves your machine learning, deep learning, and neural networks. So these concentric circles, if you see, everything which falls under AI is machine learning, deep learning, and neural network. But AI itself has a lot of subsections inside that. If I start covering one by one, it will be a huge time-consuming task. So I tried my level best to avoid going beyond what is the scope here. So then what is artificial intelligence? So based on some previous knowledge or history, it takes some decisions. As I said, it is a superset of your ML, DL, and representation-based learning. Then it evolved into machine learning, where we have various algorithms like support vector machines, linear regression, your supervised and unsupervised learning, all the stuff. Then representational based learning, autoencoders also were evolved. So very latest development in artificial intelligence is deep learning, where we have multiple layer based learning with some algorithms like gradient boosting, gradient descent, back propagation, and even we can leverage our SVM or linear regression inside deep learning. There are a lot of frameworks in each of this area. For example, in deep learning, we have TensorFlow, Keras, uh, PyTorch, Cafe. So all these frameworks are majorly developed by tech giants like Google, Facebook, along with open source community contribution. So they developed it and made open source so that people adopt them and start contributing. So that is the reason now it has a lot of mature technology available with even in open source community as well. So for example, you can build your own face recognition system, or you can come up with your own vision algorithm or improve to the existing algorithms. All that is possible because everything is available now in open source community. So in machine learning also a lot of frameworks are there like scikit-learn and all, which have a lot of community presence and supported by big enterprises like Google, Facebook, Amazon, IBMs and all. So any questions here? Okay. So let me move on to slide number 10. So this is a simple neuron mapping to artificial neural network. As I told you, during 90s and late 80s, a lot of development happened and discussions happened between neuroscientists and computer scientists. So they try to understand how a human neuron works. Right? This is one simple neuron. We have billions of neurons, and how they connected and how they share the information is very, very complex. Right? Until now, I can say that we have achieved up to a certain level. Still, a lot of research is going on. A simple neuron has a nucleus. It is a center of activity, also called as a cell body. And the endings, it has dendrites. And at the base, it has synapse, where your information will be passed to the next neuron. So like this, some hundreds of thousands of neurons connect together with synapses and dendrites, and they start exchanging information. When I say connected, actually in neurons, they are not connected. There is a small micro or nanometer gap in between them.
अरे इसमें ना ब्रू डेली करवाना पड़ता है, वो मतलब कल तला आया था ना, उसमें बटन खराब हो गया। कौन सा?
Mohit, can you please mute yourself?
So when you connect these neurons, right, there will be a gap in between neurons, and it is called synapse. So it will exchange with electric signals. So how that signal is sets have been developed with that. So when somebody simplified that human neuron, they came up with a below box-like structure where you have inputs, because every information is an input, and whether you have to strengthen that input or whether you have to diminish that input based on the criticality of that input, then you have to sum it up because multiple neurons are connected. So based on all that summing up, and then you transform that to a new form, and finally it will be output, whether it is a yes or no, or whether it has to take some decision, will be based on all these inputs. So this is a very, very simple high level connectivity between artificial neural network and actual human neuron. So if that neuron diagram, whatever I showed in the previous slide, if that is put into a mathematical structure, this will lead into a function f, where it has inputs, very simple inputs like x1, x2, xn, and w1, w2 are your weights, and you get a output y. Right? I hope this is very easy to understand, but when I connect such neurons in thousands or even in 10,000s or lakhs or millions, so you can imagine the complexity. It is not as simple as what this diagram shows. The reason is whatever the input is given, based on the weight, you have to correct it. There are a lot of algorithms and developed on this, and again they found some gaps or challenges here. For example, your output y is also called as actual output, but the expected output and your actual output, if they are not matching, we have something called as error or loss, because you wanted to achieve 1.00 but you got 0.85, so there is a gap of 0.15, right? I calculate is 15% gap, so it is not acceptable. So the accuracy level, whatever we want, given kind of level, if I want to achieve, my model neural network should be sufficient enough to handle all these kind of challenges with right set of weights and the right set of inputs. So from this simple network is what is actual basic deep learning layer has been evolved. So we have input, we have output, but in between there are a lot of hidden layers. So what is the importance of hidden layers? Don't think that I can get rid of one hidden layer or two, because even they contribute to your input, uh, so that whatever the expected output is there, so whether you get the actual output or not, because they have a lot of say here. By correcting them or fine tuning them, you can achieve the greater accuracy. So again, this is a basic deep learning layer. So like this, there will be um, multiple hidden layers involved. So just imagine if you have 1,000 such layers, each input is connected to each hidden layer. The connectivity itself is very, very huge. So now a question arises, how it is possible now? Why it was not achieved earlier? And anyone wants to answer? Take a shot.
I think there are multiple reasons. The first thing is the computing power has grown by leaps and bounds based on Moore's law. That is one thing. Second thing is there was a requirement for distributed computing for these models because they have to process lots of data. With AWS and these other services, distributed computing has become more cheap and more available now. And also, since companies started open sourcing their algorithms and models, right, people could take them, learn from them, and they could train the models and make those trained models available online so that other people can directly use them. So a combination of all these things led to AI getting much better in last couple of years.
Yeah, very good. So you covered almost three major points. One is cloud, availability of compute power, that is two. Third one is your GPUs. So until now, GPUs, right? It is similar to CPU, graphical processing units. But until 2015-16, GPUs were majorly used for gaming, right? They never thought this can be used for training a deep learning layers. But NVIDIA and along with Google and Intel's of the world, so they came up with a specific GPUs where high level computation was possible, which CPU was not able to handle. So all this combination, right, evolved into coming up with deep learning layers. So that is a very good input given by. I did not get your name.
This was Gokul.
Yeah, Gokul. Thanks. So see, for example, if you generate this kind of a deep learning layer, right, it will generate. Say, I'll just give an example. Assume that your input layer has three parameters. Your hidden layer has four, and other hidden layer two has four. Just if you cross multiply, right, 4 into 4 into 3 will be your combination. Assume that you have 1,000 such layers with uh, some thousands of input layers. So that combination will create so many parameters to compute, because everything is a matrix here, right? So these are called matrix and vectors, whatever your input you have. So just imagine you have to multiply two matrices of size 100 by 100. So your computer will hang, immediately it will hang. It was not possible until 2012, 13 or 14 kind of time, because your CPU has a limitation. Then as Gokul rightly said, if you want to get higher computation, you push your such data to your AWS or Google or Azure cloud, get it done from there, and just take the results from the cloud and process it in your laptop or desktop. So that is also possible. So now coming to um, image recognition kind of challenges, where one image itself has divided into pixels, right? So if you want to compare 1,000 or 10,000 such images, so imagine just a simple 26 or 28 by 28 pixel image, which is a very small image as compared to normal photos we take from our latest mobiles, right? If you want to compare that with 1,000 such images, which is in your database, it takes an amount of time. So they came up with a lot of simplification algorithms, like how this image can be converted into vector and how that can be fed into these neural networks and all that is fine. But even then, you should not lose the information, right? So how computer recognize the image or any language, how it treats? Can anybody want to take a guess? For example, I want to do image recognition or face recognition, or I want to do speech to text or text to speech. How it is possible? Anybody wants to take a shot? Okay, so silence means I have to go ahead with my own insights. See, for example, to computer, whether it is a speech or whether it is an image or whether it is a Word document or a video file, everything is what? Numbers. End of the day, computer treats everything as numbers only, right? Whether it is image or whatever I said. Why? Because it will not understand other than zeros and ones. Everything is either binary, zeros and ones, right? Digital information. So end of the day, whether you have an image or whether you have a speech or whether you have a text, you have to convert that into number. But blindly you cannot convert, right? Because that will lose information. How intelligently you convert your input to a number which computer can understand and process it and again give back output. So that is the crux of artificial intelligence, you can say. So any questions, doubts on this? Okay, so moving ahead, as I mentioned, AI and ML is finding a lot of advantages across the domains. So as I earlier said, uh, availability of data, right? Whether if you see your number of uh, photos or number of messages you get on a daily basis is increasing. So big data, for example, it has three V's: your volume, your velocity, your variety. So when you have large data, it is not useful, or if you don't have capability to leverage or use that data, so what is the use of that big data, right? So now with AI and ML and DL capabilities, you can process that large data and come up with your own models or outcomes. Second one is deployment. So large scale industry deployments are possible with AI with the speed of light. So many people are terming artificial intelligence as new electricity, including Google CEO Sundar Pichai. The reason is it is finding applications not only in one domain, right? It is finding it across. You take um, storage or some other technology as example, it finds application only for one purpose, storing data. Or if I take compute as example, to process the data or compute the data, I can use it. But artificial intelligence is finding everywhere, whether it is healthcare, finding whether a cell is cancerous or not, to a level where creating autobots or chatbots to handle a lot of call volumes and all. So So it is finding application everywhere. So that is the beauty of AI. And the third advantage is serving customers. It helps in serving customers better across industry segments because the time taken is very, very less, and it can handle any kind of challenges. And the other main advantage I feel is number four, because it is going to a level where it is behaving like a human. In some cases, it may behave like a human, but not all. But that field is still getting evolved, and it takes decisions based on previous data, whatever it has learned. And as I mentioned, it is finding advantage or presence in all the domains, healthcare, autonomous, everywhere, right? So AI will be one-stop problem solver going forward. So I hope all of you are aware of what is Drupal. I have just put it in one slider to give a brief introduction about Drupal. It is a content management service. So there are a lot of other vendors, but Drupal is number one. Reason being the kind of adoption, and it is also open source, and community support it has, the kind of global presence it has. So all this makes Drupal to stand out. And Drupal also has enterprise grade CMS, not only open source. If a large enterprises like New York Times or big newspaper vendors want to adopt, so it has capabilities because that architecture has built the latest PHP and Java as core technologies behind. So it can withstand any kind of load or any kind of challenges. And it has ability to organize and present content in a way it wants. And it gives a very good digital experience because you can access the seamless content seamlessly, and it has omni-channel digital experience because one window for all your content management. As I mentioned, it has global community and collaboration. Drupal has around 1 million plus community support across globe, not only specific to one region. So kind of people contribute here varies from developers, administrators, users, so many other type of people, even writers. So they come up with a lot of suggestions and contribute back to community. So this has helped Drupal to evolve for a period of time. And Drupal overall, it helps in building, providing, and managing your content across different platforms. It supports your web, mobile, and various other types of applications. So as I mentioned, it is one of the state-of-the-art technology in content management. And a lot of innovation and globalism also happening in the last 4 to 5 years. So because of this open sourceness, anyone can use it, download, innovate, and contribute back to Drupal. So that has made Drupal very strong contender in this area. Okay. So moving on to slide 15. We talked about Drupal. Any questions on Drupal? Okay. I'm seeing some chat messages. Okay. So any questions so far? Yeah. So now question arises how Drupal and artificial intelligence can be married together, or whether AI can be leveraged in Drupal. Is it possible or not? Right. So I have come up with some 5, 6 such strategies or kind of possibilities that are already being explored and people are trying to implement them, right? One is Drupal's chatbot API. Drupal has uh, capabilities of natural language processing because if you are aware, NLP, right? Natural language processing has a lot of algorithms built like NLTK, natural language toolkit, road to vector, bag of words, a lot of algorithms are there. But with those algorithms, if you don't have a API, you cannot leverage it here. For example, I'll just give a simple example. Assume that somebody has written a feedback for a particular product in Amazon, or some moviegoers have given a feedback about the movie. So with that feedback, can you come up with some conclusion? Because there will be thousands of people giving feedback, and analyzing those thousands of feedbacks for individual humans will be highly impossible. So once you extract that text, convert that text into tokens. So each your word will be a token, right? Once you convert that into tokens, analyze sentiment of that, whether they're giving a negative feedback or positive feedback based on the tokens. So again, there are a lot of comparative algorithms in NLP, natural language processing. So once you compare that and come up with a result, so right, for 1,000 users, so what is the outcome? Whether all 1,000 are negative, or 50% of them are negative, 50% positive, or 75% positive, 25% negative. So this kind of insight can be derived very easily, right? Even in web content, you will find a lot of feedbacks, or people replying with their comments and all. So these can be very easily analyzed using Drupal's chatbot API. Second one is personalization. For example, if you have a lot of content available, so what content you want, or based on your previous history. For example, you are always watching cricket, or always watching movie related stuff. So when you log in, first thing that will pop up to you will be movie related and cricket related. So based on history, so these algorithms will remember that what is your choice. So these kind of personalizations can be built, and Drupal also supports multilingual platform. For example, earlier if we have English as a basic language, if you want to have content inside that with say Spanish, Hindi, or French, so that was a little bit challenging. But now with the multiple lingual, multilingual support or platform availability, you can have multiple languages, and complete workflow can be automated with the AI. So as I mentioned earlier, based on a lot of images, so from image to text capability is available. You can derive insights. So what kind of images have been depicted, whether it is a hate message, or whether it is a liking message, or what that kind of image is giving as output. So these kind of possibilities are uh, allowed in Drupal as of now. So dynamic. Finally, your business changes are changing every day, right? Suddenly there is some new technology coming, you have to adapt to that, or build something new that was not in picture, or change to the new technology is becoming challenge. So Drupal has capability to cope up with these kind of dynamic challenges with its homegrown AI integration. Any questions here? I'll pause for a minute.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
I have one question. Actually, in Drupal, we are using to implement artificial intelligence by using third-party API, right? So
Correct.
it will decrease the performance. We use the third-party API.
Yeah, very good question. See, when you use a third-party application, right, you are not impacting the underlying performance of Drupal. The reason is you are just interacting and collecting information. All the processing will be done on the host machine, not on the Drupal itself. For example, I'll give a example. Azure, right? Microsoft Azure is a cloud service provider. So assume that Azure has Azure wants to consume these Drupal's APIs, right? All the processing can be done in the Azure cloud. So your host machine or your host content will not have any impact on that. I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, moving on to slide 16. So before that, how AI can emulate human performance by learning from it, right? So there is a very interesting discussion happened recently. I think many of you know, you will know Harari, right? He's a Jewish writer who writes historical books like Homo sapiens, so many things like how human history evolved and all. And latest book he has written is on 21 things for 21st century. So there was a debate between him and Fei Fei. She was the ex Google image processing executive. She was a vice president of that group. Now she is working in Stanford, and the discussion was whether AI will take over humans, whether they can hack the brain and all. So if you have time, you can watch it in Google. It is very interesting debate and discussion. So what they're telling is a kind of advancements happening. They're helping humankind, but say next few decades, if we are able to tap into human brain, kind of algorithm where it will interact with human brain directly and manipulate them, what will happen? So very very interesting discussion. But as of now, we're finding all because any new technology comes, right? When human beings invented fire, fire can be used for burning as well as cooking food. Right? Same kind of debate they started with. It is very interesting to know. So what is the outcome? Yeah, what are the use cases, industry use cases of AI in general? This is nothing to do with your content management. I'll cover that later. So I worked on some of the uh, challenges where day-to-day activities are many of the enterprise industries face, right? Uh, Majorly, it will be into auto healing. For example, you see a error message, you want to correct it. So in a normal programming methodology, you debug, you put your print statements, you go to the error message, and you know why that error has been generated because of some wrong code or bug or some wrong configuration. You identify that, fix it, again rebuild it. And again, somebody has to review your code, verify, then commit that to the main build cycle, right? That was a traditional methodology. So imagine how much time it will take. But now with auto healing, so what this AI algorithm will do, it will identify or knows already what are the common type of errors that have occurred previously. It has a repository of that. So for each of the error, right, what is a fix? So it goes and runs that command behind the scene without your knowledge, without interrupting the ongoing execution or build level, and comes back. So there will be a question here. I think anyone has a question here, or I can tell the question myself. So what will happen if a new kind of error is detected, which is not in the repository, right? So that will be a challenge, right? Because for a human being, he knows. So this kind of error caused by this command, I have to go here. But for a chart, for a Autobot, so it may not know, right? How do you fix that? Any answers? So it is a totally new error, which is not in my historical data. So I want to fix it. Okay, let me take a shot. Say if it is a totally new kind of error, right? Uh, which is not in the historical data repository, how your artificial intelligence part will come to know that some remedy it has to take. So it is very interesting aspect. What it will do is based on the error message, you know probability, right? If A occurs, B may occur. If B occurs, A may occur kind of uh, outcome. So it will apply some probabilistic approaches. If this kind of a error occurs, so what will be my outcome? If say ABC error occurs, my outcome should be B. If BCA error occurs, my outcome should be A. So like that probabilistic approach it uses, and it is not very easy to tell in front of this audience because a lot of mathematical computation happens. There are a lot of algorithms based on naive Bayes probabilistic approach. So if A given B, what will be the outcome, right? So they apply these kind of algorithms behind the scene and come out with a solution. It is almost, I can say, human-like decision making, may not be exact. So then auto-fix. Once you come to know what is the thing, you auto-fix it and automatically the system auto-heals. And NLP and chatbots, I described it earlier. Many of your call logs, right, whether it is in industries like BPO, where thousands of calls getting together, sometimes humans will be challenged to answer all those calls. Or initially, there is no technical input is required, just some customer wanted to ask some small query. It is already available in the website, but you don't know how to go there. So all these initial challenges can be handled by your chatbots. They'll take care of based on the query. They'll answer. They come up with a human-like voice. Even you can they have simulated the male female voices with almost human-like interaction, which is a very good to see kind of development here. And natural language processing, speech to text and text to speech conversions. For example, you are born and brought up in India and you have learned only English and other your home state languages, but suddenly you'll end up in German airport. You don't know what to ask. So now there are a lot of mobile apps where if you speak in English, that app will convert that into German and tell them. And when they speak in German, it will convert into English and give the output back to you. So all this is possible. So next one is vision, face recognition. A lot of applications, for example, giving access to a company gate are based on face, allow only the employees of that organization, right? Even they tried to take a printout of a photo or your ID badge and show it to the camera. It very clearly said it is not a valid photo. So that kind of accuracy levels have been built very recently. This is a very good improvement. Cyber security. So a lot of research is happening in this area as well. And I was happened to see one POC, but I did not work on this, where malicious uh, kind of content, like your simple example I can give is the spam ham mails, right? If you go to Gmail and your spam folder will be already filled with lot of spam kind of messages. How they classify them as spam mails, right? So they go to subject lines and content and see what are the keywords, whether they use all capital letters, whether they use some kind of special characters. So based on that, this will be classified. That will be easier task. But when to check whether some exe or attachment is a virus or a malicious content without opening it, right? So those kind of challenges are also getting addressed. And major advancement I am seeing is in healthcare industry, where a lot of research is happening in analyzing X-rays, a lot of cancerous cells, whether it is malignant or benign. So those kind of classifications are also taking place. And these are some 6, 7 industry use cases. Some of them I worked on, some of them I got exposure. So finally, if you see the quote, Alan Perils, he stated it very well. A year spent in artificial intelligence is enough to make one believe in God. So it is heading towards that. Okay. Finally, industry use cases of AI for content management. For example, you want to have real-time experience with your web applications. How it is possible? The moment you go to your web page, right? If you just place your mouse on certain buttons, it appears or it gives a feeling that you want to click that. So these kind of real-time user interface and user experience UI UX advancements are happening nowadays, and dynamic payment processing. So if you imagine there are a lot of payment gateways coming up, your Paytm, UPI, your visas, right? Every day there will be some free charge, MobiQuick. So integrating them was a challenge. Now they are coming up with a dynamic payment with one unique platform which addresses all these kind of payments in any website. So that is also possible. So there are a lot of bots for web, like for example, what page you want to visit based on your historical data, where and all you did search. So this bot will keep on suggesting you what you need going forward. And there are a lot of smart web applications in market based on AI and your ML algorithms they have built behind the scene based on your content history, your interest, uh, only the content that you want to read. So it will only pop that kind of a content onto the screen. There are many use cases being built with the AI plus content management service kind of scenarios going on. Some of them are in POC and some of them are already implemented. Any questions here? I'm heading to last slide. Any questions? So finally, the conclusion is let your website be human, not completely AI driven. I'll say some 3-4 pointers and conclude. Then I'll be open up for questions. Definitely, I will thrive in providing a better user experience, and you can target what you want in a better way. And definitely, end of the day, you'll get very good value for your money. So, any questions? I'm done. 5 minutes before schedule. Any questions, guys?
If you guys are not comfortable asking, you can type it in the chat as well, and I'll pose it to the speaker.
Yep.
Shashi, let us just give them a minute for them to type out the questions. In case if you don't have any questions, then we'll wind up.
Yep.
Okay, looks like there are no questions.
Yep.
Thanks for the talk, Shashi. It was very insightful. So I think we had a maximum of around 17 to 18 new users. That was the peak audience for us.
Okay.
And I found the talk really insightful, and I hope all the audience also found it insightful. And Shashi, you also spoke about integration with Drupal, right? I would just like to take a couple of minutes to discuss what we at Valuebound have done with integrating AI with CMS. I'll just take a couple of minutes.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So basically, we had for those of you who don't know about Valuebound, Valuebound is into web services and web product development. We primarily focus on Drupal, and we are working on a couple of in-house products as well. And our primary area is Drupal. Recently, we had a client requirement where we had to uh, create a chatbot kind of interface wherein users would be able to find the content that they are looking for directly using the Slack itself. So what we had done was we created a chatbot with Rasa. So Rasa is a open source NLU platform. NLU is it's basically like when you pose a question as you're speaking in general, right? So it can make sense out of that, and it can find out two major things from your communication. One will be the intent, and the second one will be the query. So Rasa is an open source tool that already has some models that are available. So after this talk, I'll also be sharing the link to this document. It has all the details about like what are the requirements and what are the steps that you need to follow for installation. And for training, so now basically what happens is you will have to train with respect to the content that you have from your side. So now let us say that you are working on a website which is into telecommunications, let us assume. So now you need to train your model saying that if this is the question, then you have to say that this will be the particular intent and this will be the query. So if you can guess, let us say guesstimate around 10 to 20 primary queries, because if you look at most of the customer care or customer requests, right, it's going to be like it mostly follows the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your engagement or the questions asked will be like 20% of those questions itself, and the vice versa. So now if you can target at those 20% which can actually cater to 80% of the requests, right, so you will have a better return on investment. So while training also, if you can concentrate on those questions, it would be better for training. So in our case, what we did was like we came out with sample data, we came out with various phrases and questions, and for each of that we manually entered the intent and the query. And on Drupal side, what happens is the way Drupal is actually built, right? So there's not much that you need to do on your own. So there's a module called as Chatbot API. So what this Chatbot API does is for each of the contributed modules, right, it can identify what is the intent and what is the query. So whatever you get from your chatbot, right, the intent and query that you get from your chatbot, that is passed to the Drupal end. And on Drupal side, each of the modules can define what is their intent and what is their query. So now, for example, let us say that somebody is trying to search for some content. So here your intent would be search, and whatever is the query that is generated, that would be your search query in Drupal side. So since Drupal already has a search, right? So all you need to do is match those two things, and then you will be able to leverage all the functionality that you get in search along with the chatbot API. Similarly, now let us say that you have views module. So for example, if somebody says that what are the latest 10 popular articles, right? So now what will happen is from that we can identify the intent saying that this will be the view listing and the query will be the popular articles. So when that gets passed to the views, right, we can identify which view and which display we need to use, and the output of that can be passed back as a response to that query. So if you look at it, right, so now basically what happens here is that chatbot API here makes it generic for all the chatbots. It is not dependent on whether you are using Rasa or whether you are using Alexa or Dialogflow. All it does is make sure that it creates intent and queries for you that you can plug in with any other modules. So using this, we were able to build a chatbot so that users could actually type their question in Slack and they would get the response, which would be output from some page or some request from the Drupal end. So this was one of the integrations with AI that we have worked on. And similarly, there are many places where AI will be, can you see my screen? Just hold on for a second.
No, Gokul.
No.
Yeah, just a second.
I think I have to stop the share.
You will have to stop your screen. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. So this is the document that I was talking about. It contains all the steps and how to install and how you can train the model using the UI. So I'll be sharing the link to this once the session is over. And I was talking to you about the Rasa open source tool, right? So this is the tool. And Chatbot API, this is like similar to any other your Drupal module. So you can install that and you'll be able to communicate from Drupal side what are the intent and what is the query. And so similarly, how you ask questions in Slack, you ask a question and based on that intent and query, the content from Drupal backend is retrieved and served as a response within the Slack response. So this is one use case for using AI with Drupal or any other content management system. The reason that this is very important is because even today, even after getting acceptance, AI is still considered as something that is magical or something that is difficult to implement. So with modules like this and open source tools available, right? So today, Drupal basically empowers so many top 10,000 websites. So many of those websites can start using these tools, and hence AI will become more approachable and it will reach many people. So this is one use case. There's another interesting use case, and that is especially it has got to do with the UI, user interface and user experience. So now, for example, if you look at, let's take a look at the Lullabot website. One simple use case is that there's a module called as quick links in Drupal. So as you can see here, this is basically the console. This is basically the network tab. As you can see now, I'm scrolling down. Okay. So as I scroll down, you could see that there are various requests that are happening here, right?
Hey Gokul, we can't see that.
Oh, you're not able to see the console, is it?
We're still on the chatbot API page.
Okay, just hold on. Let me see. Can you see the Lullabot page now?
No.
No.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah. No. Yes. Got
You
it.
can see it now, right? Okay, perfect. Then let me just run it again. So I'll just refresh this page now. So these are all the requests. I'll just clear them for now. So now you can see that network tab is empty, right? So now as I scroll down, you can see that there are a couple of requests being made. And when I come here, these are like some interesting ones. If you look at it here, right? So these are actually the links to the different pages. As you can see, we have 3 different articles here, right? And these 3 links correspond to that. So now what is happening here is that once those links become visible in the screen, right? In the backend, what Drupal is doing is it's making an API call and basically fetching the contents of the page. So now the moment these 3 links become visible for the user, right? All those 3 pages are already prefetched. So what that means is that even before you click on that link, right? So the content for that page is already prefetched. So now let me just try clicking that. See, if I click that, now you will see that it's almost immediate, right? Because the content for that is already prefetched. So now what are the things that AI can help you? See, now this is pretty much rule based. It is saying that only if it is visible in the screen, then prefetch that content. But with AI, what will happen is you already have Google Analytics that are generally integrated into websites. So from Google Analytics, you know what are the most popular web pages, and you know what are the most popular web pages in a particular region and particular user persona. So when we integrate AI with this, right, AI and machine learning, what will happen is when you are on any particular page, we will already be able to identify what are the links that are most probably will be clicked by the user, so that we can do the prefetching of those links even before the user actually goes to them. So that enhances the user experience very much, because if you look at it, right, so when you click on that link, it's not that the performance of the website got better, but just because of prefetching, the user feels that website is very fast. So these are the kind of things where AI learnings from AI can be enhanced to improve the user experience. So these are the 2 places where we have worked with AI and Drupal, and we are exploring a few other areas where we can integrate these 2 platforms. So that's it from my end. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Hey Gokul, there's a question on multilingual. You can check in the chat.
Yeah. Multilingual is a fairly large topic. Can you be more specific about your query on multilingual? Okay. See, I think
You can
Shashi
turn
would
off
like
your
to.
video also, like your video has got on.
Okay, just. Kumar, can you be a little more specific what you're expecting? I think when Shashi spoke about multilingual, probably he was referring to using AI in improving, for example, wherever you don't have the translations already available, and then tapping into some other multilingual service and trying to get that content. I hope that's what Shashi was referring to.
Yeah,
Shashi,
exactly.
am I correct on that?
Yeah, correct. So one web page content having multiple languages.
Okay, so looks like we have no more questions. Shashi, do you have anything from your end that you would like to say before closing it down? Shashi, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you're able to hear now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I myself has written 2 articles on deep learning and machine learning, which were published in 17 and 18. So these articles cover from basic definition till implementation level. And I have also given some other links. There is a very good website called learnai, odcs.com. They have very good videos covering AI from basic to implementation level. So any other questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
Have you give an example of the Lula board? So what types of technology means you are explaining? Actually, I'm not hear proper.
Okay. So what I mentioned was, see, Lullaby was just an example of a website. That's all. So
Yes.
there's a module which basically it does the interception through JavaScript. So whenever something becomes visible on the screen, right?
Yes.
So now, for example, let us say that a particular link became visible on the screen. So what that means is that there is a high chance that user might click that link next, right? So
Right.
instead of waiting for the user to actually click that link and then fetch the contents of that link, what this module does is whenever that link becomes visible, it prefetches the content of that link in the backend. So through Ajax calls, it fetches that content and keeps it ready so that when the user clicks on that particular link, it will almost feel like it's an instantaneous page load for him because the content is already present in the background.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And what I was saying was that instead of sticking to the minimal approach of prefetching the content only when the link is visible, what we can do is we generally have Google Analytics integration for websites, right? So from those analytics, we'll be able to identify what are the most popular pages on a website and what are the, for example, there is something called as paths also. So if a person comes to a page A, then Google Analytics also gives you percentages or probability saying that there's a 30% probability that this will be the next page that this user will go to. So based on those percentages and numbers, you will be able to do the prefetching smartly. And if we can integrate some parts of AI into that, right? So we will also be able to automate more of it, and we can make sure that whatever is the most relevant content for the next click, we can prefetch that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks everybody for attending the session. Somebody from our team will edit the video and share the link to it. And also we'll share the link to the slide and the Google document in case if you guys need for reference.